This project now, lending out digital books in Quebec's school. I'm Nancy Lusignan from Lido-Bresto. I will introduce this organization shortly. A general plan here, introduction, then a context for the project, then the project itself, and then the various aspects. Then I will talk about the implementation, and then a short demo of the platform if time allows. And then we'll have some questions, about 5 to 10 minutes for the questions. I have a colleague with me, Sarah Kim Poirier. She also works at Biblius. She is the one who will collect your questions. So let's dive in. Introduction. So what is Biblius? We are a nonprofit organization. We were founded in 2012 by a group of public libraries. So the ABPQ, BANQ, and Réseau Biblios of Quebec. Our mission is to develop digital services to support libraries' mission in Quebec. The most known project is prenumerique.ca. So this allows for all people to borrow digital books via a platform. And we have other projects, including Biblius, which is what I'll be talking about today. So, Digital Books 101, so that we all start on the same page. Let's keep in mind that digital books are a file, just like a Word or PDF. We need to have a place where to stock it. So either a drive, cloud, computer. So we need to save it somewhere. And just like any other file, there's various formats that exist on the market. The main formats are PDF, EPUB. For EPUB, there's actually several formats of EPUB, and there's also audiobooks. These all submitted, of course, to the copyright laws, just like paper books. So if we send by email a book, it is illegal, just as it would be to photocopy a full book to borrow it or to lend it to somebody else. We also talk about some locks. So we need to have locks for that purpose, to prevent copy pasting and such. So we need those barriers or locks digitally, of course, to prevent this sharing of content, because otherwise it would be easy to do whatever we would want. Just like, we could do in an email, copy pasting from Word to email or such. So when we talk about a work that has copyrights, this can, of course, bring about various issues. We have a diary here, the type that we used to have a long time ago. So think of that lock and key mechanism. Same principle. This digital lock allows to protect the content. I'm ending my introduction by talking about school libraries, because our project, this one, is really focused on the school setting. So let's define what is a school library. We often think of a stocking room for books, but actually the school library is much more than that. It's more and more defined as a learning place, a space that is flexible, adaptable, where we can collaborate with both virtual and physical resources according to the learner's needs. So it's kind of an extension to the classroom to support learning in all subject matters. So yes, of course, individual learning or reading is part of that, but also pedagogical needs as well. Now for some background info. The needs related to digital books. This is nothing new. So first, we need such resources for students who have learning disorders, handicaps, dyslexia, etc. So for those students, you all know that the digital is sometimes the only way to access reading. So we need to have various tools to let them access some files, or for Braille, for instance, for people who do not have eyesight. So there's growing needs for all special needs students. More and more students use literature and weave that into their teaching. We can work on inferences with various subject matters. We can use TME to work on writing. So we could talk at length about that, but these needs also require that we project. So if we have a small format, but if we want to project on a large wall, then it makes things a bit more difficult. But using TMI, then it helps to see illustrations, see the text, etc. Another need also is being simultaneous, so allowing several students to read the same book at once. So for all mandatory reading, for instance, we want to have that. We want to have all the access to the same book at the same time. And if we have a paper book, this will not work, of course. So with a digital book, this really helps with simultaneous reading. And I'll get back to that in a moment. We also have the question of access in remote regions, where perhaps public libraries are smaller with limited business hours. Then the school library becomes the one and only access to a library. And for public libraries, well, the child needs to be taken there by an adult, which is not the case for a school library. So we want to also have some opening hours during holidays, over Christmas break, summer break, to help maintain what they have learned for reading. Well, there are lots of elements to consider here. So if we don't have a platform that helps us manage all these digital files, then lots of issues can emerge with digital books. First, with regards to human resources. Before Biblius, if we wanted to have a digital book for special needs students, then we would ask the editor or copyback to have access to the digital version. And some, may accept, others may decline, it depends. Then we need to manage the book itself. So it's a very lengthy and heavy process. It's for everybody involved, for librarians, for teachers, everybody who has to do, to submit individual requests to access certain books. There's legal issues, of course, like I said earlier. There are copyright laws. And when we have a file, how do we go about this? How to make sure that there's no illegitimate copy that is sent over email and such. There's also Act 51, which forces school libraries to buy with an accredited library. And this act does not actually cover digital resources, so more questions there. And on the literary side, well, not all books do exist in a digital format. It depends on the publisher. Sometimes the work is an older one, and sometimes it simply depends on the publisher who does not wish to sell digital books. So it's all a question of how to get, a certain book. And even when books are available, then there's still issues with the different practices in the publishing world. So if we want a book to be compatible with vocal reproduction, then, if the formatting is not right, etc., or it wasn't configured the right way, then it may not be compatible. So there's a whole expertise there that must be developed. And not all publishers have that. It does require quite a bit of expertise there. I mentioned it earlier, the economic issues. Well, for instance, if we don't have a digital book platform and a teacher decides to buy about 10 books, 10 copies of a book, and the publisher says, yes, okay, great. And then at the end of the year, the teacher retires. Then the IT erases their computer. Then the book is lost. So how to keep track of what is bought across a school board, and how to make sure we don't buy the same book because of such reasons. So there's a lot of management required. There's other issues as well. These are fundamental. The time and energy required for getting the book, but then also to manage it, to keep track of it. How can we make sure that we have all this categorization in a proper way? How are they indexed properly? Managing everything there. So again, lots of issues there if we don't have a proper platform. So now we may ask, why not use the platforms that are already in existence? For instance, prenumerique.ca. Well, the answer is this does not meet the needs of schools. There were pilot projects in recent years, especially with Milil School Board, that has shown that the current tools that are offered for digital learning are too complex for schools to use. They're technically complex, but they're actually not compatible with the sharing devices that we have across the school. So if we have one iPad for a whole classroom, and we need to download the book on the one device every time, and we have one tablet per classroom, then it gets very complicated. There's also legal issues, and I will get to that. But the licenses that were signed to allow using these works only allow for individual use. So projection to a whole classroom is not covered by this. In recent years, there was a work group with the Ministère de l'Éducation. Yes, the Ministère de l'Éducation, there we go. And they examined the needs of the school setting from 2014 to 2016. So most of the needs that I just mentioned were brought up at this table. They had several stakeholders, so librarians, distributors, publishers, and even the Federation of School Boards. There were also organizations representing children, APSDS. So a lot of stakeholders united to think about this issue of digital books, and they demonstrated that it was necessary to have a platform that would allow for management of books, specifically for the school setting. In June 2018, the Ministère launched the Digital Action Plan. We have Measure 17 that says that we want to deploy digital books loaning in school libraries and encourage transition to learning centers. So like I said, it's a new concept about libraries. I won't focus on that, but I just mentioned it in passing. So libraries are to become learning centers. So the Ministère gave us, Biblius, this mandate to develop a platform specifically designed for the school setting, because we have an expertise, namely with prénumérique.ca, which has been in use for a while now. And the government mandated us with having a school librarian with us in charge of the project. And that was myself. I've worked for over 6 years in those shoes before I moved to this project. So I'm really combining the expertise of Biblius and the needs on the field of schools. What is the project? Well, we could define the project in 4 spheres: legal, economic, and I'll get back to that. We also have training. We want to not only deploy the platform, but also support its use, offer training and user manuals so that everybody can be comfortable using it. With these spheres, well, there's actually librarian economic pedagogy that covers all of those. I'm talking about issues, but it's really just a component for all the components of the project. This is what supports the project. If we didn't have pedagogical needs, then we could just use the platforms in existence with public libraries, but there are specifics to the school setting, which is the pedagogy, and this has guided our decisions. And the third component is collaboration here. This is truly a collaborative project. We covered a lot of actors, players, and collaborators. We have librarians, distributors, publishers. They're all people that we collaborate with. And I will get back to that in a bit. Of course, we work very closely with schools, and I will get back to that in a moment. We have university researchers, like Greeks also. So lots of stakeholders that were involved in this collaborative project. So first, let's tackle the technological aspect. So I talked about the platform, but what is a platform? It's the container first, and then we'll move to the content. So the platform is a tool that allows us to manage lending and returns, always respecting, of course, licenses and copyrights. A platform also offers an interface. It looks like a website for all intents and purposes. There's the Mosaic portal, for instance, where we have an interface there, and we can look at the library as if we were actually there. So the user, whoever it is, can see the books and research them, filter them by author, by theme, etc., and open them directly on the platform. One of the specifics of the project also is the promotion and pedagogical use of the books. We can, for instance, assign mandatory reading, and the students, when they connect, say, oh, okay, I have a mandatory reading here. So this is the type of feature that we've developed for the school setting. Also, on the technological side, I'm mentioning here that, again, we're a nonprofit organization and we're the project leader, but we work with Demarc. They are a technical provider to really develop and code the platform itself. This is why Demarc here is something that you can see throughout my presentation. On the technological side, also, the question of metadata is fundamental. We can have in a platform some files, but if we don't have added to these some descriptions and labels, then the platform cannot know that, you know, this file corresponds to one author or one theme, etc. All this info is called metadata. They're data about the data, and they have to be rigorously input if we want to be able to have a good search feature and find the right books. This is why we've worked with Service Québécois de Traitement Documentaire, SQTD, to be able to integrate very soon the metadata. This will allow us, like I said, to have a very effective searching on the platform. We also work in collaboration with the GRICS on two levels. First, to facilitate access to the platform. There's some experimenting that we've done in the past, especially with the Mille School Board. And one of the things that was difficult is access. If we need passwords, then 100% of the users forget their password. So it is always a puzzle. It's easier for users to use the same access info, ID, and password that they use for other platforms, school-related. It also allows us, if we have these connectors, to have a platform that will get some info on the user to allow for some certain specific features. So if a teacher can assign reading to students, then the platform needs to know which student is associated with the teacher. So this was developed, like I said, in collaboration with GRICS. For those who are more visual, so here is a diagram of what I just explained. So how does the platform work? Well, we have publishers over here who lend us EPUB or PDF files, typically. And we have digital warehouses. It's a server, it's a space where the files are stored. There's, of course, user licenses associated to these files. How many times we can lend the book, after how long we must buy another copy, etc. So these are all decisions that are managed with that user license. And we want to offer some books. Like I said, the platform is just a container. The content is managed by a digital library that's strongly related to the school. So this is where the library input the content, buy what they need to buy, and then the books are on the platform. The platform manages lending. There's a tool for reading. There's a research function and some other features. Now for the legal aspect. So typically, when we talk about digital book lending, of course, we think of the technological aspect to do it. However, the legal component is fundamental. It's a big chunk of the project. We need to put together a new model for all the chain to meet, yes, the needs of the schools, but also to have proper access. So to facilitate your understanding, if I buy a book, $10, a digital book, I lend it, no, let me restart. If we buy a paper book, so normally if I want to have 30 students reading simultaneously, then I need 30 copies. However, if it's a digital book and I can lend it to 30 students at once, then if I have only one copy, when there's this lack of balance between the needs of librarians and publishers and the schools. So yes, we do want simultaneity. We need to have a proper balance also of what is associated to that. So it is a huge issue. And we work with people to develop the proper framework for this. We also want to manage the data. We are working with GRIX for connecting to the platform. We also need to make sure in this context that everything is well done to ensure that we meet privacy standards. This is something not quite as glamour, but it is still something that is essential to the project. Now, communications. We have collaborators with the project, and everybody who's interested, of course, we needed a communication component for them. So this is the website, projetbiblius.ca, in French only. You will find a presentation of the various components of the project, everything that I'm saying and I will be saying, also some news. We have some updates. We look at pilot projects, we present those. So I really urge you to have a look at that website. For now, the website, like I said, is only in French, but we will have an English version soon.
And now the platform. I have been talking about the school library content. Now a few precisions. What will we find on this platform? Now, since this is the school library, on there we're going to find some literature, some books for the youth, some comic books, poetry, and theater. Now, the academic books are not part of this project. There's a priority right now regarding Quebec literature, Francophone literature. First of all, this is for logistic reasons. As I said, we're going to develop a complete economic model. We're going to think about all of this for proximity reasons. It's easier to work with our Quebec publishers first in order to really have a model that will answer to our needs, something specific to Quebec. And also because it should also be possible to offer books from elsewhere and other countries, other languages, if we want the school library to also answer to teacher needs. We have to develop that with partners. And also we have some needs to have books in other languages, English language, also for the language teaching of languages, books from here and from other countries. Of course, we have already started working with some publishers outside of Quebec, and we want to continue that work in the future months and years. Now, the Biblius project is for preschool students up to secondary 5, as well as colleges and universities. Well, that's not part of the project, colleges and university. This platform is destined to students and all of the staff working around learning and teaching of students. It will also be accessible to public schools and private schools and to First Nations programs as well. Now, the accessibility, as we were saying before, this is one of the fundamental needs connected to this project. We really want to provide access to these books for all our students, in fact, all students. So accessibility is at the core of the project. We have developed and we continue to develop this project according to the recommendation of the Conseil supérieur de l'éducation, which recommends a universal type of access. So instead of focusing only to certain types of access for certain students, we developed this platform so that it's going to be universally accessible to all students and every time. Now, regarding technical aspects, functionalities, we are working in collaboration with the school milieu to develop all of this in terms of access. Also, when I'm talking about accessibility, this is also for special needs students, but also in the larger meaning. So this is bilingual at this point. All of these functions in the interface are both in English and in French available. Not everything is perfect. Not not everything is perfect yet. We work in collaboration with our partners to continue improving the platform. Now, as far as legal aspects, we still have a lot of work to do with our colleagues from the publishing world, making sure that all of these formats of different books will allow the higher level of access to all students. This is a must in this project. We still have a lot of work ahead of us. It's not perfect yet. We know we can make it. And access, once again, is a must. Now, what about the time frame? Now, the initial time frame, you will see and understand that there have been some changes. Initially, the Biblius project had to happen in 3 steps. First of all, development, where we would develop the platform itself, the technology, but also the economic model, negotiations, accesses regarding books. And the first phase was supposed to happen between February 2019 up to January 2020. Then there was step 2, which is smaller implementation up to spring 2020. And then there was going to be a preparation until fall 2019. What is this about? Well, the objectives have been in collaboration with the education department. So there are 16 schools, 1 private school were participating in this project. Now, the general objective is to document the access to a centralized collection of books. These are digital books, of course, something that is accessible through the Biblius platform. Also, we wanted to document the practical aspects, pedagogical aspects, making the technical fine-tuning, and then to plan the complete implementation. Now, this limited implementation was supposed to be followed by a future step in with school boards, but this is conditional yet. Now, just a clarification regarding this limited deployment. Step 2, this was a decision of the MEQ. The objective was to have a good representation of all of these school milieux of Quebec. So in there, we have Francophone schools, Anglophone schools, in remote locations as well, urban settings, Quebec City, Montreal, and also Ile de la Madeleine, all of the regions of Quebec, in order to have the all of the profiles of Quebec. So it's not all of the overall services, not all of the schools participate in every service centers. In each of them, there is between 1 and 3 schools participating in the project, a total of 35 schools scattered across Quebec. In each of these school service centers and private school, there is 1 person in charge of the project that will train their colleagues, work in collaboration with professionals in order to develop a project during which we will be starting to use these digital books. There are 14 professionals involved in charge. We have somebody in charge of documentation and also a pedagogical advisor. They have started the project in fall 2019. There are different types of projects. And so if you visit the website, Projet Biblius, you can read all about it, different projects. It's quite varied. So we do deal with all of the types of student clienteles. Sometimes it's 1 year long initiatives. Sometimes it's about novels. Sometimes it's about other subjects. So it's very, very rich. The objective is to make some pilots through these 35 projects to see how we can use digital books and see how we can make improvements to this platform. Yes, there it is. So this is the second phase. We were talking about these quite varied clienteles. We have regular curriculum students, primary school, secondary school, FB, FGA, regular classrooms with integrated students, those that have special curriculums, also some Anglophone students, those that have French as second language, also some Aboriginal settings and schools, also other students in classe d'accueil, and also we have the Marie Victorin School Board working with some visually impaired students. So we are going to see if this is compatible with our platform. We also want to work with some intellectually impaired students if they have behavior issues. So we really have a very large sample of students. Now, in this limited deployment, we are working in collaboration with this chair of research in literature from the UCAM. This is with Ms. Nacelle. She is the main professor. The intention of that collaboration is that this chair of research is going to support between 3 and 7 schools in order to better document the collaboration, co-creation of activities. Also, there is the pedagogical potential. They're going to present some recommendations with their own expertise and their own um, research perspective about um, functionalities and also about reports that will be presented. Now, I have been talking about what should happen, right? Well, just like for many pilots, this Biblius project has not been unaffected by the current events since last spring. Even though this is a digital project, the Biblius project has been affected by this health crisis. As I've said before, this was supposed to be a limited deployment until spring 2020. Unfortunately, with what happened in schools, we were not able to uh, continue with this pilot the way we wanted it to be. Unfortunately, we had to cancel many of these projects or all of these projects that were supposed to happen on the field. All of these projects have been postponed until school year 2020-2021. It has started. Some projects or pilots have started. Some are going to start later, but uh, really, it's not the way it was planned with these 35 schools that were experimenting the access of a centralized digital library. This will only happen in 2021, 2020, 2021. So as I've said before, we have to separate the content and the container, the platform, and there's also the container, which is a collection of about 1,500 books that were developed in connection to these projects that were defined last fall and that were to be accessible for these 35 schools. And we wanted to document all of that. However, by postponing the limited deployment up to 2021, the full deployment would have to be postponed later as well until 2022. However, all of these health rules, sanitary rules in relation to the pandemic has seen an exponential increase of the needs of access to these digital books. Now, in view of this increase of needs, there's Biblio Presto and the education department and all of these stakeholders have proposed a new time frame. So during the school year 2020-21, we are going to develop the platform in order to allow all of these school service centers from Quebec to do some purchases of digital books so that they can manage them directly into the platform. The deployment calendar will be published soon before the end of November. Everybody will be sent to the school milieus. So regarding the deployment calendar, not everybody will be connected at once. This will happen in several steps. All right. Now, I think that I have the time to do a little demo. Now, let's start. This is the account of a teacher. So I connect to this platform as a teacher. This is the portal, and these are the books I am reading right now. So as a teacher, this is what I'm using for my personal use. Now, if I want to continue reading that I started, I just have to click on this little button here, and then the book opens where I was reading at. So I don't have to mark the page. It's automatic. There are certain functions that allow you to change the size um, of the fonts. You can also change the spacing, the margins. I'm not going to play with all of this, but this gives you some idea. You can also change the contrasting colors if you want to have it black on white or the opposite. And you can also change the display, the way it's displayed. Let's say if you prefer to read it in this way, you have this type of reading column, so you can change the display in order to have an easier reading. Also, we have a function of automated reading. So let me show you. So this is text speech to voice. It's also possible to change the speed of the reading of the text to speech if you want to have it faster or slower. Also, when there is this voice which is reading, sorry, yes, when the voice is reading, you can highlight the text. You can also cut the text. You can just continue reading as the text is being highlighted. This is good for some students that have some problems focusing. They can focus on one sentence at a time. If we want every student to read one sentence out loud, you can use all of these tools if you want. Not every tool is available right now, but we have got some requests. You will be able to take notes eventually in the future. That should be integrated. Now, as I've said, let's say I'm a teacher, I'm connected to the platform. I can also do some searches. Let's say I enter hockey. So here I have results per book. It could be per book collection. Let's say this Planet Hockey collection is quite interesting. Then I can read this summary. I have the publisher and so on and so forth. And if I click on reading, I'm going to make a loan. If I want to click on excerpt, I can just read part of the book before I Oh, also, it's very simple. Let's say I assign this book to my group A of students. It's been assigned here. And in this section, now this is a pilot, but usually these are the groups that would be assigned to your profile as a teacher. And here I can see that in group B, I have these books for group B students. I have assigned these books to this group of students. Now I'm going to log off. I'm going to log in as a student now. Let's clarify that this connection mode is just as a test, but usually you can access to this Biblius platform directly from the Mosaic platform. So there is a link and you can connect as a teacher or as a student. Just click on it and then this is automated and then you log in directly into your user account going through the Mosaic platform. This is quite interesting. Now, as a student, I log in. These are the books I have that are part of this loan. Also, there is this section that are assigned books by the teacher. So I can open up one of them if I want. Well, here I have three loaned books. One is a documentary book. Another one is a comic book. And so these are the assigned books by the teacher. I can just click on it and start reading these assigned books by the teacher. All right, so this is in a nutshell what I wanted to show about reading. Now, what about the searches that I can do? In the next few weeks, there's going to be an advanced search of these books per target, per authors, per types of books. So it will be possible to filter the searches about these books. This is going to be implemented soon. And here you can, of course, filter these books, and you can find exactly what you want. All right, now we are now at the Q&A session. Are there any questions? I believe that there might be a few questions. Any questions? So there are several questions. First of all, how many books can students take in a lending? Is there a limit? Well, there is a limit in terms of time, 41 days. So if a student lends a book, it's 41 days. And after that period of time, the book is sent back to the system, but the student can lend the book again. This generates another lending. All of this is in memory, and when you need to return the book. So if I'm a student, I took too long to read the book, I forgot, then I have to lend it again. So the system will remember that I am at page 42, which is extremely interesting for all students. Is there a limit of the number of books that you can lend? Can you lend 23,000 books at once? Well, we are finalizing this limit that will be selected by every service center of schools. Then it can be with, just like brick and mortar libraries, depending of your collection, depending what you want to offer to students, all of that will be defined in the future. Another question, will Biblius be accessible only to Quebec school libraries, or is this going to be accessible to other French schools across Canada? Well, very good question, because the Biblius project is subsidized by the Department of the Education of Quebec. Well, the border is province of Quebec at this point in time. It is limited to Quebec schools. Now, what is the cost of the program? Very good question from a first grade teacher. Well, for the 2021, the access to the platform itself, this management tool, not its content, we have to separate them. The tool itself, well, there's no cost involved. It's the education department that pays for the access of a platform and the tool as well. However, it will be up to every school service center to determine their own budget to purchase some of these books so that they can be managed. And then the cost of these books is determined by the publisher. And purchases can be made depending of what's been offered in the online virtual library. And so this depends on the school milieu. Now, will all of these books be shared in the network, or does every school have to purchase these books separately? Very good question. Now, because of different reasons, such as human resources, logistics, technical aspects as well, so the platform, Biblius platform, will need to have one collection per school board. It's not going to be per school, it's going to be per school services. So these resources will be regrouped so that the books will be purchased and offered to all of this school service center. Now, what is the cost? Does Biblius provide simultaneous access? Yes, as I've said before, we have been working very hard with all of these stakeholders. And now the objective is to allow a simultaneous access with a limited amount of books lended. If you purchase a book, you have the right to lend it an X number of times, and then you can go beyond all of your lendings. If you want to have 35 students reading it at once, it's possible. Yes, so simultaneous is something very important in this project. Last question, can we lend a digital book and can you project it? Yes, just like simultaneity, all of these pedagogical aspects, projection, this is part of the fundamental aspects that will be allowed in this digital library, we wanted to ensure that this really answers to the pedagogical needs of the teachers. So this is part of the conditions that were negotiated with the license of this Biblius project. Well, my school service center does it need to be registered so that we can access these books? Let's understand that the Biblius platform is not a resource that you have to register for. This is rather a platform that is for, how can I put it? You don't need to register as a teacher. Once your school service center activates Biblius in the Mosaic portal, all of this will come in. All of the information will be shared, technical aspects. All of this will be broadcast everywhere next week. So as soon as this is activated, as soon as Biblius is activated, you have an automated access to the platform. As a teacher, if you are part of this school service center, if you have a Mosaic account, then the system will automatically recognize the users and it's going to operate in collaboration. The connection will be automated. As an individual user, as a teacher or another professional, you don't need to create an account. All of this will be made automatically. Your account will be managed according to the information provided by the Greeks to Biblius. This will be done automatically thanks to the connecting tools that exist. That's how it's going to be done. Thank you. Oh, are there any other questions? If there are no further questions, well, just to clarifications about private settings and Aboriginal settings, they have special needs which are different from the regular school boards of Quebec. Now, during the current school year, 2020-21, we are going to offer the deployment to all of these school service centers across Quebec. We're going to use this school year, the current one, to determine which ones are the specific needs and the realities of these school environments, which might be different in terms of technical resources. Which ones are the platforms? If we don't use the Mosaic platform, how can we generate the ID for this Biblius platform? How can we allow some functionalities? How can we customize them to the needs of these environments? So all of this school year will be used to test all of these needs, to adapt to the specific needs, and to allow to have something that will really answer to the needs. Here's a question. This Biblius platform, is this compatible with Regard? This is the question coming from a documentation technician. Anyway, this Regard is a tool that is being used to do the management of paper books in school libraries across Quebec. Many people use Regard. This is what's called an integrated management system for books. Now, Regard has not been developed in order to manage by itself the files. Regard has some index files, so there is some indexation. So if you have digital books, you also need to be able to manage the books themselves, the locks, licensees. So this is something that will not be offered there. However, it will be possible. And as soon as the platform will be accessible in your school, you will be able to include some notifications of digital books in your catalog. What does that mean? Let's say a user is looking for a book on planets. I'm in 6th grade. I'm looking in Regard the book about planets or astronomy. I will find all of these books that my school library has in paper format. I can also have a descriptor saying there's also a digital book available, by the way. So if I click on it, there's going to be a link which allow me to go to the Biblius platform, and therefore I can access the digital book. It's not Regard that's going to manage these digital books, but there are going to be segues, connections, so that we can access both the digital books and paper books. All right, next question. Are there going to be promotional tools so that we can promote it to our students? Yes, of course. This will be part of our mandate of support and training. This is part of what is being developed. So all of the training will come with tools, and you will be able to customize some posters, web banners, and so on and so forth that you will be able to use. This will be presented at the beginning. They will be improved over time. So this is a work in progress, and I see what time is it now? Oh, so here's my conclusion. So here's the conclusion. I think that this is going to wrap up this session. Let's remember that the Biblius project is something which is done in collaboration. This is an iterative process. The platform is a first version of a platform this year. Usually the limited deployment should have been done before, and then we could offer it in this special context. We are going to develop and deploy it a little bit before we wanted to deploy it. That's one thing. And there's also the will of every stakeholder, department, Bibliopresto, and the stakeholders of Chaîne du Livre to work in collaboration in order to continue improving all of this. And I think that we will need your support, your common understanding, and your common involvement in order to be able to develop something that will allow us in the next few months and years to have this school library of our dreams. Thank you so much, everyone. And this is my final conclusion. If you have questions, if you want to get some additional information, visit projetbiblius.ca. This is where you can find out information with this deployment timeframe as well. That will be soon available, as well as our contact information. Thank you so much and have a great conference. Thank you.